My child, pause for a moment. I know you were just scrolling, maybe not even thinking about anything in particular, or maybe your mind was already full. But this right here, this is not for everyone. This is just for you and me. I stepped into this exact moment on purpose, right in the middle of your thoughts, because what I need to say cannot compete with noise. There is no crowd here, no one else listening, just you and me, close enough for you to feel this if you allow it. Before your worries had names, before you lay awake some nights staring at the ceiling trying to quiet your mind, before you grew tired of holding everything together, I already saw this moment. I knew where you would be, what you would be carrying, even those quiet feelings you do not always say out loud. And still I waited, not rushing, but waiting until your heart had just enough softness left to hear me. That is why you are here now, not by accident, even if you cannot fully explain why this moment found you. Listen closely now. This is not something broad or general, and it is not meant to pass by like everything else. These words meet you exactly where you are, shaped around your life, your questions, your hidden weight, and even the parts of you that feel uncertain about the future. If you were not here, if your story were different, this would sound different too. That is how personal this is, and I need you to feel that. I chose this moment with care, not earlier when you might not have been ready to receive it, and not later when something inside you might have already closed off. Timing matters when love is involved, and even if parts of your life have felt delayed or unclear, there is a deeper order you may not fully see yet. You might look back one day and realize that even the pauses, even the confusion, carried you into something meaningful, including this very moment. So stay here for a second. If you can, just for a few breaths, do nothing else. Let everything else wait and simply be here with me. This moment carries weight, not in a way that pressures you, but in a way that asks you to notice it. You can receive what is being placed in front of you, or you can move past it, but it will not feel the same either way. I can feel the hesitation rising in you, that quiet tension that makes you want to pull back or distract yourself again. But you are not in trouble, and you are not being judged or tested. This is an invitation, and there is a difference you can feel if you slow down enough. Fear asks you to close off and protect yourself, while love gently asks you to come a little closer, even if you are unsure. This is not about religion or performance, and it is not about being the version of yourself that looks fine on the outside. The one who feels tired sometimes, the one who still wonders, the one who has been disappointed but has not completely shut down. That is the part of you I am speaking to right now. Tell me honestly, when was the last time you let yourself be that real, even for a moment? Something begins to shift the moment you truly listen. Not when these words end, but when your heart stops guarding itself and allows even a small opening. When you pause the need to figure everything out and simply receive what is here. Inner change often starts quietly, like something settling beneath the surface before you can see it. And right now, something is being placed within you that will grow in its own time. And even now, something is taking root inside you. Something that will gently change how you carry your life from here. This space we are in, it is just you and me, untouched by your past, untouched by the people who hurt you, untouched by the expectations that have been weighing on you. Those voices do not get to speak here. Right now it is only us, and that is why this feels different in a way you might not have words for. You may notice how your attention keeps coming back, how something in you does not want to scroll away or move on just yet. There is a quiet awareness rising, even if you cannot fully explain it, that this moment matters. It is not about pressure, but about timing, about your heart being in a place where it can actually receive something deeper. You did not have to understand everything to arrive here, only to be open enough to pause. So stay here for a few seconds longer. If you can, set everything else aside and just breathe, without trying to figure anything out. There is something meaningful in allowing yourself to be present instead of rushing past this. Moments like this carry a certain kind of grace, one that meets you where you are and speaks in a way you are finally ready to hear. What unfolds from here will not suddenly make life easy, but it will begin to change how you walk through it. The heaviness you have been carrying can start to shift, and the way you respond to things can slowly become lighter, steadier, more grounded. When something inside you moves, your perspective begins to change, and with that, your choices begin to follow. That is how real change begins, quietly, from within. So remain here with me. There is no need to rush back into distractions or divide your attention. Let this moment complete what it came to begin, because you are not alone, and you never have been. If this is speaking to your heart, you can pause and acknowledge it, even in a small way, and let that be your way of receiving what is being given. My child, there was a time when it truly felt like it was just you and me. You might remember those moments, maybe late at night when everything around you was still, or in the middle of a busy day when your heart suddenly softened for no clear reason. Back then, you did not need many words. Sometimes you just sat there. Sometimes tears came quietly, and sometimes you felt something deep in your chest that you could not explain, yet you knew I was near. I remember those moments clearly, more than you realize. I remember how honestly you spoke, without trying to sound strong or put together, just speaking from where you truly were. I remember the quiet prayers, the simple faith that felt alive, where believing did not feel complicated. You did not overthink every feeling or question every thought. You simply came, and I met you there. There were times when even silence felt meaningful, when you were not asking for anything, just staying present. Your tears were not from panic, but from release, and your heart opened without resistance, allowing trust to flow naturally. You did not need proof or explanations because you could sense my presence, and that was enough to steady you. I want you to understand how much those moments mattered. They were not small or temporary, and they were never imagined. That connection was real, and it still holds meaning even now. It was you responding freely, before life became louder and before your thoughts began to crowd the quiet spaces. You might wonder why that closeness feels different now. Maybe you have asked yourself what changed, or where you went wrong, or why it does not feel as easy as it once did. Hear me gently here, because this matters. There is no blame in this, and there is no disappointment in how you arrived here. Life did not pull you away all at once. It happened little by little, through responsibilities, through disappointments, through questions that kept building over time. You learned to protect yourself, to stay strong, to manage everything instead of letting yourself rest. The noise did not come all at once either. It settled in slowly, filling the quiet moments that once felt peaceful, until your heart simply grew tired from carrying so much. Over time, that simple closeness you once felt started to seem farther away, not because it was gone, but because so many other things filled the space around it. I want you to hear this calmly and clearly. I never stepped away from you, not even for a moment. I did not grow distant. I did not turn silent in anger, and I did not replace you with anyone else. I have remained exactly where I have always been. What you felt as distance was not me leaving. It was the weight you were carrying catching up with you. It was the overload, the constant pressure, the way your heart was trying to hold too many things at once. Even in moments when you barely noticed me, I was still aware of you, still near, still present. When prayer felt empty or forced, when quiet moments felt restless instead of peaceful, I stayed with you patiently. Love does not disappear when attention shifts. It stays and it waits. And I have been waiting for you, not with disappointment, but with openness, with steadiness, with care. If this message is reaching you in a meaningful way, you can take a small moment to acknowledge it, even quietly, as your way of receiving what is being offered here. Let that be enough for now. Those moments you remember, the ones where everything felt simple and real between us, they were never meant to stay in the past. They were a foundation, showing you what connection feels like when trust is not complicated and love is not crowded. I am bringing them back to your awareness now because that closeness can be felt again. Not by going backward, but by being present right where you are. You do not need to become who you were back then, and you are not asked to undo everything life has taught you. I am not asking you to recreate the same emotions or repeat old routines. I am asking you to come as you are now, carrying what you carry, knowing what you know, even holding your questions as they are. This is where real closeness begins to deepen. Connection grows when you stop trying to perform it and begin to be honest instead. What I am restoring between us is not built on pressure, rules, or guilt, but on something quieter and more real. It is built on remembering, on gentleness, on truth that does not force itself. You do not have to try to feel close. You only have to allow yourself to be present. Let go of the thought that something meaningful between us has been lost beyond reach. What was real was never destroyed. It was simply covered by noise, by busyness, by everything you had to carry. And those layers can soften. Your heart can open again, silence can feel safe again, and trust can return in a deeper, steadier way than before. I am still here, just as I have always been. And right now, once again, it is simply you and me. I know how heavy your heart has been feeling, not just tired, but weighed down in a way that rest does not fully touch. You wake up with it, even on quiet mornings, and you carry it with you through the day without always knowing how to name it. You have learned how to keep going while holding that weight, how to smile in conversations, how to respond when people ask how you are, even when something inside you feels worn and tender. But I see it clearly. There is a sadness that stays mostly unspoken, not always loud but steady, like something sitting quietly beneath everything else. You rarely talk about it because you do not want to add to anyone else's burden. You remind yourself that others have it harder, that you should be grateful, that you should have moved past this by now. So you keep it tucked away and continue showing up, but hiding it does not make it small. There have been moments where you felt deeply misunderstood, where people heard what you said but missed what you felt. They noticed what you did, but not the effort it took for you to keep doing it. What you have wanted is simple and honest, to be seen for real, not admired, not praised, just understood. There were times you wished someone would ask how you really were and stay present long enough to hear the truth. When that did not happen, you learned to stay quiet instead, and that quiet became something you carried, another layer of weight that did not have a place to go. You have also felt invisible in rooms where you were not alone. You showed up, you supported others, you listened, you cared, and still something in you felt unseen. You may have wondered if anyone noticed how much effort it took just to be there, just to keep engaging. That kind of loneliness is not about being physically alone. It comes from feeling disconnected while still being present every day. It is a quiet kind of ache, one that does not always show on the surface, and I understand how deeply that can affect you. Let me walk you through this gently so you can really see it. What you have been feeling is more than just being physically tired at the end of a long day. It is something deeper, something that settles into your chest even when you try to rest, like those moments when you sit down but your mind keeps carrying everything anyway. This kind of weight comes from holding things that were never meant to stay on your shoulders. You have been carrying worries, expectations, responsibilities, and quiet fears, not because you lacked trust, but because you felt like everything depended on you holding it together. Somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that if you loosened your grip, things might fall apart. You learned to equate strength with handling everything alone, so you kept going, even in moments when your heart was quietly asking for a break. Tell me honestly, how long has it been since you allowed yourself to truly rest without feeling guilty? Over time, that constant effort began to settle into heaviness. Not because you were doing something wrong, but because you were doing what you believed you had to in order to keep going. Carrying everything alone comes with a cost, even if you do it well. It slowly dims your joy, softens your hope, and turns prayer into something that feels like effort instead of comfort. You may have noticed how silence started to feel uncomfortable, like when everything gets quiet and the weight becomes more noticeable. That is where this heaviness has been living. Not because something is wrong with you, but because you were never meant to carry life this way by yourself. I want you to set down the blame you have been placing on yourself. You have been harder on yourself than you realize. You told yourself you should have moved past this by now, that your faith should have made things easier, that you should feel stronger than you do. But hear me clearly, feeling heavy does not mean you have failed. It means you have been strong for too long without rest. Strength was never meant to mean ignoring your own pain. Real strength is quieter than that. It is the moment you recognize that some things were never yours to carry in the first place. It is the willingness to pause, to trust, to release what has been weighing on you. And this is the kind of strength I'm inviting you into now, one that allows you to rest without fear. I have seen everything you have been carrying, even the parts you never showed anyone. I have seen you keep moving when you wanted to stop, choosing responsibility when your heart needed care, choosing endurance when honesty felt too heavy. And I do not see failure in that. I see someone who cared deeply and kept trying. You were never weak. You were overwhelmed, stretched thin by expectations and by the quiet pressure to keep going no matter what. And even then you still showed up. You still gave. You still held on to hope, even when it felt fragile and uncertain. That matters more than you realize. Now I am asking you to let me hold what you no longer can. Not later, not when everything feels sorted out, but right now, as you are. You do not need to explain every detail or justify why you feel this way. Just allow me into the places you have been protecting, the places that feel heavy and unspoken. Stay here for a moment and just breathe. You do not have to fix anything right now. You are safe to rest, safe to be honest, safe to set things down without proving anything. You do not have to earn relief, and you do not have to stay strong in this moment. As you begin to release what you have been holding, the weight may not disappear all at once, but you will start to feel a shift. Your breathing will soften, your thoughts will slow, and your heart will begin to ease in ways you may not expect. This is not weakness. This is the beginning of healing taking place within you. Let this settle in you. You were never weak. You were carrying too much by yourself. And you do not have to continue that way. I am here, steady and present, and I am not leaving. There are also things you have held inside that you have never said out loud. Questions you pushed down because you were unsure what they might reveal. Thoughts you quickly silenced because you did not want to feel ungrateful or uncertain. But I have always known them, even the ones that formed quietly before you turned your attention away. Nothing you have questioned has ever surprised me. Nothing you have wondered has ever created distance between us. You are allowed to bring all of that into the open, because none of it has the power to push me away. There were quiet moments, maybe when you were alone or lying awake at night, when a question surfaced gently in your mind, am I really enough? You did not say it out loud, and most of the time you tried to move past it quickly, but it stayed there in the background. You noticed your flaws, your inconsistency, the ways you felt behind, and it made you wonder if you truly mattered. When you looked at others who seemed more certain or more put together, it felt like you were always coming up short in ways you could not quite fix. Listen to me carefully here. That question did not come from truth. It came from exhaustion. When your heart is tired, it starts to see things through a different lens, one that makes everything feel heavier and less clear. You began to question your purpose too, wondering why you were here and what you were supposed to be doing with your life. You saw people moving forward with confidence while you felt unsure, and it made you wonder if you had taken a wrong turn somewhere along the way. There were moments you quietly feared that maybe your life would not become what you once hoped for. You questioned whether something had been missed, or whether you had fallen behind in a way that could not be undone. I saw those thoughts, and I never looked at you with judgment because of them. Even the doubts you felt about me, the ones you hesitated to admit, were never something that pushed me away. You wondered at times if I was really listening, or if your prayers were reaching anywhere at all. And when those thoughts came, you felt guilty, like you were not supposed to think that way if your faith was real. So you pushed them down quickly and tried to replace them with something more certain. But hear this clearly. People who believe still have moments like this, and those moments do not erase their faith. You also carried quiet fears about the future, not loud or dramatic ones, but steady concerns that stayed with you. You thought about being alone, about not becoming who you hoped to be, about looking back one day and realizing you made it through life but never truly felt it. You worried about time passing, about making the wrong choices, about hope rising again only to fall. Those thoughts sat with you even when you tried to stay positive on the surface. So let me speak into those places gently. Your worth has never been tied to what you accomplish. It has always been rooted in the fact that you belong to me. You did not earn your value, and you were never asked to prove it. Before you ever took your first breath, your worth was already established, and nothing about your imperfections changes that. You do not become valuable by getting everything right. You are valuable because I chose you, and even your flaws have space within that. They do not remove your worth. They create room for grace to move in your life. If this truth settles in your heart, you can acknowledge it in your own way, even quietly, and let it take root. Your purpose has not disappeared, and you have not missed it. It is not something fragile that vanishes because of one wrong step. It unfolds over time through your life, through your relationship with me, through every season you walk through. Even the paths that felt like detours have shaped you in ways you could not see at the time. Nothing you have lived through has been wasted. I am able to bring meaning out of every part of your story, even the parts you would rather forget. Your doubts do not disturb me, and they do not create distance between us. I would rather you bring them honestly into the open than hide them behind words that feel forced. When you keep your questions buried, they tend to grow heavier. But when you bring them to me, something begins to ease. I am not unsettled by your honesty. I welcome it, because it opens the way for something deeper between us. You do not have to pretend with me. The fears you carry about your future do not mean your faith is weak. They show that you care, that you want your life to matter and your choices to mean something. That desire itself comes from a place within you that is alive and reaching for more. Fear only begins to harm when it keeps you silent and stuck. So bring those fears to me instead of holding them alone. When you do, they begin to lose their grip, and they no longer control how you move forward. You are not broken for feeling this way. You are human, living in a world that asks for certainty while giving very little of it. Of course questions come. Of course fear speaks. Of course you wonder if you are doing enough or becoming enough. That does not mean you are failing. It means something in you is still growing, still searching, still alive. I understand this struggle because I have walked within human experience. I know what it feels like to be misunderstood, to carry things that others do not see, to pray from a place of deep pain. I am not distant from what you are feeling. I step into it with you. That is why you can trust me with what you have kept hidden. You do not need to organize your thoughts before bringing them to me. You do not need to solve your doubts first. Bring them as they are, and let that honesty become the place where something real begins. Let yourself be honest now, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. You have spent so much time holding things in, choosing what feels manageable over what feels true, and it has taken more energy than you realize. But trust does not grow through perfect words or careful presentation. It grows when something real is allowed to exist between us. You do not need to sound strong or certain here. You only need to be sincere. And maybe that begins quietly, with something small you have been avoiding saying, even to yourself. When you allow that truth to come forward, even in a whisper, something inside you begins to loosen. The pressure you have been carrying starts to shift. The tension softens, and the distance you thought was there begins to fade. I have always known what has been on your heart. Every question, every hesitation, every hidden thought, and nothing about it has ever made me turn away. You are safe to bring all of it here. Safe to question, safe to feel unsure, safe to admit what has been weighing on you. And as you begin to do that, trust grows in a way that feels steady and real, not forced or fragile. You begin to understand what it means to be fully known and still deeply loved, without needing to hide or perform. There were moments when no one seemed to notice what you were carrying, but I did. Times when you were surrounded by people, conversations happening all around you, yet something inside you felt distant and disconnected. You smiled, you responded, you stayed present, but part of you felt like you were standing just outside of it all, watching instead of belonging. And you wondered why connection felt so close for others, yet just out of reach for you. So you told yourself to stay strong, to not make it into something bigger than it needed to be. You reminded yourself to be grateful, to keep going, to not let it show. Over time, you became skilled at holding everything together, knowing when to smile, how to say, "I'm fine," without hesitation, how to keep things light even when your heart felt heavy. You did not want to burden anyone or seem like you needed too much. So you kept showing up as steady and capable, even in moments when something inside you felt like it was quietly breaking. And while others may have admired your strength, they did not see the cost of it, the energy it took just to maintain that image. Then there were nights when it all caught up with you. Maybe lying in bed, staring into the dark, your phone set aside, the noise finally gone, and everything you held in during the day starting to surface. Tears would come without a clear reason, not from one moment, but from everything building over time. Disappointments, unspoken feelings, quiet fears settling in. By the time the day ended, you had used so much strength just to keep going that there was nothing left to hold it all in. And in those moments, when you felt most alone, I was there with you. Not distant, not observing from afar, but close, closer than you realized. I was there in the silence, aware of the ache in your chest, aware of the thoughts moving through your mind. Even when it felt like no one saw you, even when it seemed like you had been left to carry everything alone, you were never by yourself. Every tear mattered, each one holding something real, something I understood completely. I did not rush you to stop or expect you to be stronger. I allowed you to feel it because release is not weakness. It is honesty finally finding space. You needed to be seen as you truly are, not the version you show others, but the one who feels tired, the one who hurts,